long and difficult road to recovery for Southwest Florida tonight. Thousands of people have filled emergency shelters, and the death toll is now more than 100. The continued search and rescue efforts for the missing and the hope that one day Southwest Florida will look like home again.
So I foresee a great future for the beach. You know, people will always want to come to beachfront property.
An emergency appeal filed by former President Trump, his request for the highest court to step in as he battles the FBI over seized classified documents. A bombshell accusation for a controversial candidate in Georgia's Senate race just weeks before the midterm elections claims that Republican Georgia Senate candidate Herschel Walker paid for a girlfriend to get an abortion. How Walker, who is vocally anti-abortion, is firing back against the claims, and why his son is calling his own father a liar. Leaving the classroom, more than 1 million American families have decided to homeschool their children since the start of the pandemic, and the highest reported rise is in African-American families. Why more black parents are making their choice to teach their children themselves.
I am accountable to Zoe and Tyler. They were the gifts I was blessed with. So I want to do everything I can as their mother, along with their father, to give them what they need and not what the system is saying they need.
If you're looking at me, you're looking at country.
Looking back at the life of a country music queen, her songs of love and hardship, her rural resilience, and her story of being a coal miner's daughter, we remember Loretta Lynn. The daughter of immigrant parents details her rise to fame by conversation with actress Constance Wu about her deep, personal, and revealing collection of essays.
I didn't realize how much I had been holding back over the years. Because I just thought, like, oh, that's my job, just to shut up and be grateful.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Lindsay Davis. Thank you so much for streaming with us. Despite the days that have passed since Hurricane Ian's punishing winds and rain, the door-to-door search for survivors in Southwest Florida has not stopped. But what is intensifying is the agony of all that was lost. Some first responders arrived on hard-hit barrier islands by helicopter to comb through communities leveled by the Category 4 storm that had been cut off from the mainland by roads and bridges after they washed away. At a news conference this afternoon, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis reported more than 2,300 rescues already and nearly 80,000 structures checked, but the work continues. At the same time, the death toll from Ian has now officially topped 100 victims. That's the state's deadliest hurricane in modern history. Many who have been left homeless are now moving into emergency shelters as officials work to restore power and water. The big question now is what the effort to rebuild will look like and who's going to pay for it. President Biden plans to visit Florida tomorrow, and we'll speak to the mayor of Fort Myers Beach in a moment. He remains optimistic despite the destruction. But we begin tonight with ABC's Victor Kendo in Fort Myers.
Tonight, the growing need for basic necessities as families try to survive in Hurricane Ian's wake.
What are the biggest needs in this area right now?
Water and food.
In Fort Myers, hundreds lining up at this distribution site organized by the nonprofit Global Empowerment Mission. And not far from there,
inside of this arena, it's now being used as a Red Cross shelter. They started by filling up this exterior area, and now they are at 100% capacity. Take a look over here. They're now using the arena floor. It is lined with hundreds of cots.
We met Brittany Allen with her husband and 7 children. They rode out the storm here.
What's it like now having all of your children here with you inside the shelter?
It's just a safe feeling.
It's safe here.
It's safe. It's a lot. It's a big change. But we can't be anything but grateful.
Today's search teams, including this canine, boarding a Blackhawk, headed for battered Pine Island in hard-hit Lee County. The death toll, at least 100 across Florida. Ian made landfall at 3:05 p.m. on Wednesday, and while the forecast track did shift as the Cat 4 storm closed in days earlier at 11 a.m. on Monday, the National Hurricane Center was warning of life-threatening storm surge coming to Lee County. The county didn't put that mandatory evacuation order into effect until 7 a.m. Tuesday morning, local officials defending their decisions.
This area in Fort Myers Beach is home to the largest commercial shrimping fleet in the Gulf of Mexico. In this community, they rely on these boats to make a living. But now this boatyard looks more like a scrapyard, and they're out of work.
Joanne Simmer, living on the island for decades.
For a lot of people, this was their livelihoods.
It is their livelihood. It still is. We're going to work and get them free and get them back out working.
Victor Akendo joins us now. And Victor, from the looks of it, I guess a lot of that was useful just a few days ago, but now debris. We heard you say that the shelter you visited was at 100% capacity. How many people are there, and what about the others still being rescued and in need of a place to stay?
Lindsay, at that shelter, there were more than 500 people, according to the Red Cross. And yes, they were at capacity, but they also tell me that they have other shelters open and there is space in there. So anyone who needs a place to stay in Southwest Florida right now will have a spot. Lindsay?
All right, Victor Akendo, we can imagine the need is great. Our thanks to you. Joining us now is Ray Murphy, mayor of Fort Myers Beach. Mayor, thank you so much for joining us, especially what we know is a difficult time. Let's start with the search and rescue. Are there search and rescue efforts still happening at this hour?
Yes, they are. They're continuing as we speak, around the clock, 24 hours a day.
What is going on the ground right now? What's the first step in recovery at this point?
Well, the first step, of course, is finishing up this search and rescue. As soon as they get done with that, we can go in and start hauling off debris, getting our utilities back up, and so forth. So there's a lot else going on simultaneously with the search and rescue.
Mayor, we're having a little difficulty hearing you. I imagine that has to do with the power and everything that's still being recovered at this time. Curious to know what the short-term plan is with regard to children who need to go back to school and stay local in order to do that potentially.
That's a very good question. Our local school on the beach was destroyed, as the other schools on the Barrier Islands were. So I imagine the school district of Lee County will be determining where these children will be taken off the island and put into schools. I imagine that'll be close to where they've been evacuated to, because they certainly won't be able to go to the schools that are here.
And what's the long-term plan at this point?
Well, the long-term plan is to rebuild all our facilities. But as you say, that is long-term. It's going to take some time, but step by step. We have to clear the island first, get all the debris off the island, and then whoever can repair, make remedial repairs to their places and get back in, can do that. Although there won't be too many of them, there's going to be a lot of major repairs going on. Nobody was spared this storm. Every structure on the island was affected. So there's going to be a big job ahead of us. But we're up to the task and look forward to the challenge of it.
When you say that there is a big job ahead, where does the money come from to rebuild, to tear down, to restore what the town has lost?
Well, that's another good question. I'm sure in the short term there'll be FEMA funds available, and hopefully everybody had insurance on their properties that they'll be able to make claims on to rebuild, or they won't. Or people may decide, that's one hurricane too much for me. I'm done. I'll sell, and I'll move on. President Joe Biden is expected to visit Florida tomorrow. If you get a chance to talk to the president, what do you think your message will be to him? Well, I'll express my gratitude for coming down, and my message will be, President Biden, we can use all the help from the federal government that's possible. We're going to need our assistance from our partners on the federal level, and I think I can count on the president to help us out down here. And lastly, Mayor, when you envision the future, how do you see Fort Myers Beach now? Well, I envision it with the rebuilds, people building up to today's codes, and the building stock being so much better. You can still have the same type of architecture and beachy cottages and all that sort of thing, but you just have to build them strong. All of the newer houses that have been built on the beach over the years, all the concrete homes, they did exactly what they were supposed to do. The water rushed through the bottom, blew it out, and the houses remained standing. So that's how the beach has to, any barrier island for that matter, has to rebuild. If you're going to live on a coastal barrier island, you have to build so the buildings will stand. And so I foresee a great future for the beach. People will always want to come to beachfront property, and there's a certain amount of the population, no matter what happens, they'll come back to barrier islands. And so I see a bright future, actually, and I look forward to seeing it happen.
Well, we appreciate your optimism. Ray Murphy, mayor of Fort Myers Beach, we thank you so much for joining us and wishing you all the best.
I thank you so much for having me.
The East Coast is still dealing with Ian's remnants tonight with coastal flood alerts all the way up to the Northeast. ABC's chief meteorologist Ginger Z is here now. And Ginger, when will the storm finally be gone?
Well, that's the thing, is the Ian's remnants kind of hung out in the mid-levels, just a lot of the moisture. Then it was another storm that kind of was like a parent, and they kind of made this one. And it hasn't moved because we're in a bit of a blocking pattern. That blocking pattern, which has given us 4 days of really ugly weather in the Northeast, will be moving on eventually tomorrow. But tonight, you can see me, my hair whipping in the wind here. This thing is as close as it has been. That means the winds are the highest. Newark Airport just tweeted saying that they've had flight disruptions, that you got to check ahead because the wind is just that much. We know that there's been close to a ½ foot of rain over the last couple of days in South Jersey. A lot of places picking up anywhere from 2 to 4 inches. But as that thing whips backwards, right, it's still counterclockwise. It's all about that coastal flooding, especially when you get close to high tide. You get that push of water, and even up the Delaware River in Philadelphia, they've been under that coastal flood warning, and we're going to see those through tonight. By tomorrow, things start to improve, and from west to east tomorrow afternoon and evening, we will see some drying as another band of rain showers comes over us right now. Lindsay.
All right, Ginger Z with the hair whipping in the wind there. Our thanks to you. Turning to politics now, former President Trump has filed an emergency appeal to the Supreme Court asking it to intervene and block the Justice Department from reviewing the classified documents seized at Mar-a-Lago. Here's ABC's chief Washington correspondent, Jonathan Karl.
Donald Trump is appealing to the Supreme Court in the legal battle over the presidential records seized by the FBI from his Mar-a-Lago home. But the appeal is a limited one. His lawyers are asking the court to allow a special master to review the documents marked classified to see if any of them are protected by attorney-client or executive privilege. An appeals court had ruled last month that the documents marked classified should not be reviewed by the special master. In today's filing, Trump's lawyers write, quote, any limit on the comprehensive and transparent review of materials seized in the extraordinary raid of a president's home erodes public confidence in our system of justice. The Trump appeal, however, does not appear to attempt to block federal prosecutors from examining the documents as part of their ongoing criminal investigation, something they are already doing.
ABC's chief Washington correspondent Jonathan Karl joins us now. Hey, John, the former president lost in an appeals court by a unanimous 3-judge panel, including 2 justices he appointed himself. What are his chances now in the Supreme Court, and why is this appeal request directed directly to Justice Clarence Thomas?
Well, it goes directly to Clarence Thomas because he is the justice that oversees the 11th Circuit. So there is really just a procedural reason there. In terms of his prospects for success, unclear, but I will say this, Lindsay, he has been repeatedly knocked down by the Supreme Court. While he was president, they ruled against his effort to overturn the 2020 presidential election. And after he left office, they ruled against his effort to block the January 6th committee from getting access to White House documents. So although he did appoint 3, or he is responsible for 3 of the 9 justices on the court has frequently turned down his appeals, flatly turned them down.
Do we know if this appeal changes much on how the investigation proceeds?
I mean, the truth is, even if he were to prevail here, and that is a big if, but even if he were to prevail here, this is a narrow procedural appeal, and it would not have a significant impact on the criminal investigation into those classified documents seized from Mar-a-Lago.
All right, Jonathan Karl for us. Thanks so much, John. Now to a bombshell accusation in Georgia's pivotal Senate race. Republican Herschel Walker has called for nationwide abortion bans with no exceptions, but the Daily Beast reports that he paid a former girlfriend to get an abortion. He denies that allegation, but one of his sons is now blasting his father's campaign. ABC's Rachel Scott has the latest.
Senator Raphael Warnock.
The race that could decide control of the Senate.
Let me hear Herschel.
Now upended by the report Georgia's Republican Senate candidate Herschel Walker paid for an ex-girlfriend to have an abortion. Walker calls it a flat-out lie. Today, he was ducking reporters at a prayer breakfast in Atlanta.
It's clear Herschel Walker's campaign is trying to keep us at a distance. We tried to attend the luncheon that he is attending today. Well, his campaign kicked us off the property and moved us all the way across the street. We don't know if we're going to get any closer.
We didn't. Walker slipped out. It comes less than 24 hours after the story broke. An anonymous woman claiming to the Daily Beast that when she became pregnant in 2009, Walker urged her to have an abortion. She showed the reporter a $575 bill from the abortion clinic and a $700 check she says was from Walker. There's also this, a get well soon card she says he gave her. ABC News has not independently confirmed the report, but Walker says it never happened.
I never asked anyone to get an abortion. I never paid for an abortion, and it's a lie.
And when asked about that $700 check,
well, I send money to a lot of people, and that's what's so funny. I give money to people all the time because I'm always helping people because I believe in being generous.
Walker opposes abortion rights in all cases, no exceptions.
I'm for life. In the Ten Commandments, does it not say, thou shalt not kill? That is one of the 10 commandments that you should live by, that we should go by, thou shalt not kill.
Today, his own son, Christian Walker, calling him out as a hypocrite.
Family values people. He has 4 kids, 4 different women, wasn't in the house raising one of them. He was out having sex with other women. Do you care about family values?
Christian Walker, a conservative influencer with a large presence on social media, says every member of Walker's family had begged him not to run in the first place.
Don't lie about your life. You don't get to pretend you're some moral family guy. You don't get to pretend all these things. Do not lie.
Really damning words from Herschel Walker's own son there. Rachel Scott joins us now from Georgia. Rachel, top Republicans are standing by Walker. Does it seem like this will have any impact on his Senate race?
Well, Lindsay, I could tell you that I was speaking with top Republicans on Capitol Hill today. One told me it is full steam ahead. They are standing behind Herschel Walker, and a lot of the reason is because a lot is on the line here. This is control of the Senate, and a lot of people believe that that could be decided by this Georgia Senate race. Well, as for the Democrat in this race, on the other side of things, well, Senator Raphael Warnock, well, he is out campaigning, making it clear that he supports abortion rights. He says that voters have a real choice to make this November, but polls show that this is a very tight race. These two candidates neck and neck, Lindsay.
Yeah, single digits separating them. Rachel Scott for us in Georgia. Thanks so much, Rachel. And now to the war in Ukraine, where Ukrainian troops are quickly advancing in the south and ramping up the pressure in the northeast as well. Meanwhile, on the political front, today Ukraine's President Vladimir Zelensky signed a decree vowing to never negotiate with Vladimir Putin. ABC's chief foreign correspondent Ian Pannell reports tonight from eastern Ukraine.
Tonight, more stunning breakthroughs on the battlefield by Ukrainian forces. Slava Ukraini! Soldiers in newly liberated towns in southern Ukraine celebrating by tearing down Russian flags, using them to wipe their feet. Russian military bloggers embedded with Kremlin troops reporting the collapse of an entire section of the front line northeast of Kherson. Ukraine's army advancing nearly 20 miles in 2 days. The Russians forced to retreat to avoid encirclement. It's a setback so serious it may endanger Russia's ability to hold the regional capital Kherson, annexed by Putin just days ago. Also today, in the northeast, Ukraine reportedly closing in on more critical towns after their dramatic success here in the Donbass just days ago.
This is one of the main roads that leads into the Donbass. It's only recently liberated by the Ukrainians. You can see some of the damage on here, some of the signs of the battles that were fought to take this territory.
In a phone call to Ukraine's President Zelensky today, President Biden renewing his promise to defend Ukraine for as long as it takes, pledging another $625 million in weaponry, including 4 more HIMARS rocket systems that have proven so crucial to Ukraine's success on the battlefield. Zelensky today also signing a decree to never negotiate with President Putin.
Our thanks to Ian for that. And when we come back, the disturbing find inside Lego boxes, rainbow fentanyl. We'll tell you where. Our conversation with Constance Wu about why she says she was canceled on social media and nearly attempted suicide. But up next, we have heard so much about critical race theory and the concerns about what's being taught in schools. Well, tonight we'll hear from parents worried about what their children are not learning and why they're turning to homeschooling. This is ABC News Live.
The crush of families here in Poland.
At refugee centers
in Putin's Russia.
On the ground in Ukraine.
Close to the front line.
Here at the White House. Destructive Cat 4 storm.
Here along I-5.
Boston is in the bullseye.
Let's go. We made it.
ABC News Live, America's #1 streaming news. Anytime, anywhere. Streaming 24/7 straight to you for free.
Thank you for making ABC News Live America's #1 streaming news.
Bring them on.
If only there was a place in the morning to start my day. With a smile, somewhere to help me get in the know. A place as spectacular as, well, me.
I think we might know a place, right, guys?
Bring your friends.
Oh, wait, there is.
Good morning, America.
GMA, 7A, every day. Boom, boom, boom.
Good morning, Michael.
Good morning, Robin. Good morning, America. How are you?
Boom. Now that's how you start your day, people.
All right, here we go. You ready? Let's do it.
Yes, it's the show America wants and America needs right now.
This is What Would You Do? Let's go. How are you? Yes.
So what will you be watching Saturdays on ABC News Live?
What would you do?
Hey, I guess I just found out.
The What Would You Do Marathon, 12 to 6 Eastern, every Saturday on ABC News Live.
My favorite show.
As of today, in a big way, we have inaugurated abcnews.com.
A lot has changed in our world since Peter made that announcement. But what hasn't changed is the commitment to groundbreaking reporting and innovation at abcnews.com. And here's to everything ahead.
This is ABC News Live Prime.
Thanks so much for streaming with us.
Live reporting, breaking news, exclusives, award-winning, powerful, eye-opening. ABC News Live Prime with Lindsay Davis, streaming weeknights.
With so much at stake in our world right now, we wanted to thank you for your trust and for making ABC News America's #1 news.
And thank you for making ABC News Live America's #1 streaming news.
With so much at stake, so much on the line, more Americans turn here than any other newscast. ABC News World News Tonight with David Muir, America's #1 most watched newscast across all of television.
America is being poisoned with fentanyl, and we don't even know it.
Just heard my wife screaming. She told me they had just died.
50 to 100 times more potent than morphine. Keep breathing, come on. It's poison, it's pure poison.
A few grains of salt worth of fentanyl will kill you.
Just my agency has seized enough to kill the entire country.
ABC News Live presents Poisoned, America's Fentanyl Crisis. The powerful series, streaming free on ABC News Live.
Law enforcement swarmed around a college in Boston and even evacuated part of the campus over a reported bombing last month. But now they say it was all fabricated by an employee. The FBI has now arrested Jason Duhame, who was the director of the Immersive Media Lab at Northeastern University at the time. Police say he claimed he opened an exploding Pelican case, but they never found explosive material, and said his injuries did not appear to be caused by an explosion. Law enforcement officials also say a threatening letter he showed them was written on a laptop in his office. More than 1 million children have been taken out of public schools since 2019, with parents deciding to teach them at home instead. The rationale for many is the lack of resources and worries about school safety. But a census survey found a noticeable spike in one particular group of families that's also citing racism and critical race theory. ABC's Steve Osunsami traveled to Birmingham, Alabama, where parents worry that soon schools won't be allowed to tell the truth about the history of racism.
7-year-old Tyler Thomas and his 11-year-old sister Zoe are just like most other children in America because they're running late for school this morning.
Excuse me.
Their mother, Doella, needs coffee. The kids need breakfast.
Just drink it real fast.
And it's time for them to go.
Time to start school. Let's go, Ty.
But they don't have to go very far.
Okay, I need this down, because today we're going to start with Language arts first.
Homeroom is in a room upstairs at home in the suburbs of Birmingham, Alabama.
Contractions. Remember we worked on contraction last week?
And since the pandemic, more than 1 million other American families have joined the Thomases, who've decided to pull their kids out of public and private schools and teach their children themselves. In the school year that started in the fall of 2019, there were about 2.5 million homeschool students in America. By the next school year, deep into the public health crisis, it was 3.7 million children. For the school year that's starting now, an estimated 5 million American children are getting their basic education at home. Something's clearly happening.
I really believe it's growing because people are seeing the difference. One of my reasons, though, of homeschooling is because you're at school all day, and then we got to come home and do homework. And you've already been at school all day, and then your child is exhausted. What part of speech have we talked about last week? And being at home, I can get school done in 3 to 4 hours versus doing 7 hours in a building, and then I can teach my children where they are. I'm talking about learning styles. We can play our song, and it's super easy and super quick. When you look at the school system, there's a traditional way of learning. Everybody is learning the same way, but are we the same?
No.
We're different. My brain process is different from where your brain process is. I am accountable to Zoe and Tyler. They were the gifts I was blessed with. So I want to do everything I can as their mother, along with their father, to give them what they need and not what the system is saying they need. S.E., very good.
She tells us that the needs of her children are a little different, in part because they're children of color, which helps explain something else that's new. While the U.S. Census reports that the number of families choosing to homeschool have jumped in every group, there was one group that stood out.
If our child was in school, we would be getting called all the time.
Really?
Because he would be labeled, he's bad, he's too busy, he's not a great listener, he's not focused, and all these things because he's so busy.
In Birmingham alone, there are now enough black parents homeschooling their kids that they've started a new community.
By the way, if I'm going to be on TV, make sure you give a good side. I'm just kidding.
With more than 200 children.
Just in the last month, we've had 43 new members join our community. Just
in the last month?
In just the month of August.
I just want to let people know that we're not anti-school. We're pro a different option.
The kids grow up together.
Yolanda Chandler and Jennifer Duckworth are the mothers who lead the group and call themselves the Black Homeschoolers of Birmingham.
Jamari!
My youngest son lasted until first grade, but he was actually a victim of racism in kindergarten, first grade. You know, we had an incident where I just got called to the office one too many times. I was one of those parents who was there all the time. You know, I was actively involved with the school. I knew then when I got to that elementary school and I could see his little face through that glass sitting in that principal's office that I was not going to give them the opportunity to break his spirit.
Right.
And that we walked away from that day and we never went back.
They told us they've seen way too many scenes like this one at a school in Orlando, Florida, where police hauled away a little black girl in the first grade after an assistant principal said she started kicking and screaming over sunglasses she wasn't allowed to wear. And they say they're sick and tired of seeing kids running for their lives at school.
Our goal is to create a safe space for Black and brown homeschoolers to learn, play, and grow.
And there's so many of us out there in the community, all over the country.
Exactly.
They also share that they don't like some of the new changes to what's being taught in traditional classrooms. Some of them aren't quite comfortable with their youngest children discussing gender identity issues. And on the other side of the group, there are other parents who worry that schools are now being told to stop teaching the truth about racism in America. And they point to these 23 states that either have new laws on the books or are considering new laws that would make it illegal to teach lessons that were just fine a few years ago about sex, gender, and racial history.
I believe the curriculums is whitewashed, to be blunt.
One of those states is theirs, where next year lawmakers are expected to reconsider rules that would prevent schools from teaching what some are calling divisive concepts.
On September 15th, 1963, the 16th Street Baptist Church was dynamited.
And these families are offended that teachers could be told not to tell the true story of what happened to black people in Selma, Alabama, or during the Montgomery bus boycotts, or when former Governor George Wallace famously stood in the schoolhouse door trying to stop the racial integration of state schools. Today, one of the people defending this idea of avoiding divisive concept in schools is this man, the first African-American Republican to serve in the Alabama State House in nearly 150 years.
Did you have black voters, politicians, colleagues on the other side call you a sellout for supporting this?
Unfortunately, and that's sad.
That's not a word that you are unfamiliar with.
Well, no, I'm not.
He says he applauds black homeschool families for making a choice that they feel is best for their children, but reminds them that not everyone is in a position to teach their kids themselves.
Before I became an elected official, I spent the last 11 years as advocating for parental rights, for example. So definitely support that parent choice to make that. But also, I would love to challenge parents, if you do see that.
If parents see the whitewashing.
Well, if they see anything that they feel is inappropriate in our school settings, you know, you can take your child removed from that setting, and it's good for your family. But look at the bigger picture, you know. Also, bring it to someone's attention.
Anyone who might say, you know, you're privileged to be able to teach your children this way. What do you say to those folks?
Well, I honestly do think that I am privileged. And I tell my husband all the time, I'm grateful that we have the opportunity to do this. And I would say I don't want people to judge other people. Whatever decision they're making for their household, that's for their family. Repetition.
The Thomases say it's very likely they will teach both kids at home through high school, and say it's a decision that doesn't come easy.
Do you get tired?
I do get tired. Oh, last week I was saying, and I'm gonna be honest, I'm gonna tell you what I said. Why am I doing this again? Why am I homeschooling? Why don't I sit it? Like, am I called to do that? Like, questioning myself, because you do get tired. And then I have to stop, or I call a friend that I know I can call, you know. Phone a friend. Hey, this is how, because I need to vent that out of me.
Absolutely.
We don't need to hold that. Like, I don't have to act like I got it all together. Hey, this is what I feel like today. I need you to help me mentally in my brain. This is what's going on.
You love your children.
I do love my children. I do. I sacrifice for those babies just like my husband, you know, does for us as a whole. But I do. I love my children because they're my gift. They're my reward.
That phone a friend can be clutch. Our thanks to Steve Osunsami for that. Still ahead, the family, a mother, father, 8-year-old, and uncle kidnapped against their will. The trial continues for some of the Oath Keeper leaders who were at the January 6th riot. And we are 5 weeks away from Election Day. We begin our weekly look with our partners at 538 about where the race for the midterm stand right now. But first, our tweet of the day from Twitter confirming that Elon Musk indeed does plan to move forward and buy the social media giant.
All right, here we go. You ready? Let's do it.
Yes, it's the show America wants and America needs right now.
This is What Would You Do? Let's go. How are you?
How cute. Yes. So what will you be watching Saturdays on ABC News Live?
What would you do? Hey, I guess I just found out.
The What Would You Do Marathon, 12 to 6 Eastern, every Saturday on ABC News Live.
My favorite show.
This is ABC News Live.
The crush of families here in Poland.
At refugee centers
in Putin's Russia.
On the ground in Ukraine.
Close to the front line.
Here at the White House.
Destructive Cat 4 storm.
Here along I-5.
Boston is in the bullseye.
Let's go. We made it.
ABC News Live, America's #1 streaming news. Anytime, anywhere. Streaming 24/7, straight to you for free.
Thank you for making ABC News Live America's #1 streaming news.
America is being poisoned with fentanyl, and we don't even know it.
Just heard my wife screaming. She told me they had just died.
50 to 100 times more potent than morphine.
Keep breathing, come on.
It's poison. It's pure poison.
A few grains of salt worth of fentanyl will kill you.
Just my agency has seized enough to kill the entire country.
ABC News Live presents Poisoned, America's Fentanyl Crisis. The powerful series, streaming free on ABC News Live.
Bring them on.
If only there was a place in the morning to start my day. With a smile, somewhere to help me get in the know. A place as spectacular as, well, me.
I think we might know a place, right, guys?
Bring your friends. Oh, wait, there is.
Good morning, America.
GMA, 7A, every day. Boom, boom, boom. Good morning, Michael.
Good morning, Robin. Good morning, America. How are you?
Boom. Now that's how you start your day, people.
Ready for election night, I'm ready for debate night, I'm ready for it all.
This midterms is really important.
Hi, everyone. We're going to run you ragged.
What would George do? We're working on it, George. We're going to make you proud.
As of today, in a big way, we have inaugurated abcnews.com.
A lot has changed in our world since Peter made that announcement. But what hasn't changed is the commitment to groundbreaking reporting and innovation at abcnews.com. And here's to everything ahead.
Yeah, you hear the music, you know what that means. Today marks 5 weeks until Election Day, so we wanted to take a look at where the race for the midterm stands by the numbers. And to help us with that is Galen Drew from our partners at 538. Thanks so much for joining us, Galen.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so I know you guys have been pouring through the numbers, the data, the stats. What do you think? Let's start as far as with the House first, as far as the likelihood of who's going to gain control, Republicans or Dems.
So to explain a little bit about our forecast, we compile a whole bunch of data, most importantly current polling, but we also look at historical data about the different states where the elections are being held. We look at information about the candidates that are running, and we input it into the model, and it basically spits out a forecast showing the odds of Democrats or Republicans winning control of the House. And so essentially, what our forecast will show is if you ran the election 100 different times, you will see that in the House, Republicans are favored to win 69 times, and Democrats are favored to win 31 times. All of that is to say that Republicans are favored. The polling is really close, but in an environment like the one we're in right now, that seems likely, at least according to the forecast.
All right, crunch the numbers for us, if you would, for the Senate.
The Senate, interestingly enough, is basically the inverse of that. It shows that Democrats have a 67% chance of winning the chamber there. And you may wonder, okay, wait, like how is this situation turning out that one party is favored to win one chamber and the other party is favored to win the other? And the reality is that only a third of Senate seats are up every midterm cycle. And this collection of 34 states in the Senate that are up this cycle happen to favor Democrats. Sometimes it favors Republicans, sometimes it favors Democrats, but that's the current cycle that we're in this time around.
And tell us how you've seen a shift in these numbers just since the summer, and in large part kind of leaning toward the Democrats.
Yeah, it's important to say that during a midterm cycle, you generally expect that the party that's out of power is going to do well, is going to pick up seats. Historically, there's basically a backlash against the party that controls the White House. Earlier in the summer, at the beginning of June, we saw that Republicans had a 60% chance of winning control of the Senate. But by the time we got to mid-September, Democrats had a 70% chance of winning the chamber. And what happened, a couple things happened, but first and foremost, the Dobbs decision came down from the Supreme Court overturning Roe v. Wade. Historically, when one party controls the White House, the Senate, and the House, they get a lot of wins, and there's oftentimes a backlash to whatever policies they've put in place. Voters start to feel like, oh, you've gone too far, whatever. It's rare that the party out of power will get a really big win when they have no actual power in any of the chambers or the White House. In this case, they did. They overturned Roe v. Wade. It was a huge story. A lot of people heard about it. And we've seen something of a backlash in the polling. We've seen in special elections, Republicans have not been doing as well as expected after the decision came down. I should mention, though, a couple other things here, which is that over the same period of time, gas prices have reliably fallen. And those are very important to voters. When you look at polls, inflation and the cost of living rank really highly in terms of salience of issues. And so, that's part of the equation as well. But we have seen in recent days maybe a little bit of shift back towards Republicans. We're really going to have to wait and get more information.
538's Galen Droop, thank you so much for breaking it all down for us. And you can see much more from the 538 election forecast by scanning the QR code on your screen right now. And we look forward to having Galen with us every Tuesday night until Election Day. And we still have lots to get to here on Prime. New developments in the search for an apparent serial killer. What police are revealing about the discovery of more victims. And remembering the coal miner's daughter. The tributes and memories pouring in after the death of country legend Loretta Lynn. But first, a look at our top trending stories on abcnews.com.
With so much at stake in our world right now, we wanted to thank you for your trust and for making ABC News America's #1 news.
And thank you for making ABC News Live America's #1 streaming news.
Now streaming on ABC News Live 2020. True crime, cinematic, real-life drama, stunning, the unthinkable. Follow the clues, the hunt. True crime 2020. Now streaming on ABC News Live.
National parks are incredibly safe places, but crime will happen.
My wife had fallen. She's in really critical condition.
At that time, I thought it was just a tragic accident.
There's still a lot of questions we need to ask.
There were small things that didn't totally add up.
This is 2 lives for Harold that have died now. I was shocked. Something's not right.
Admit it. These days, what you need to know
seems to change just about every day.
What is it that you really want to know, need to know?
To help you not just get through your day,
but to make the most of it. Feel smarter.
Feel better.
Feel happier.
Well, how about a third hour of Good Morning America?
GMA 3, what you need to know. Now streaming on ABC News Live.
It's all about you.
I know what happened, and I'm not guilty.
Why the fascination with criminal trials? Figure out what's really out there.
She revealed she had murdered his family.
I know in my heart that he did this.
It's the time of suspicion. The ending's really tough.
You don't know whether truth is going to be difficult to find unless you try to find it.
America's #1 news, ABC News. Most watched, most trusted, and streaming live to you anytime, anywhere, and free. This is ABC News Live, America's #1 streaming news. Free to you 24/7. Watch America's #1 news whenever you want it, wherever you are, anytime. ABC News Live, streaming live and free on all platforms.
Drone footage of Fort Myers Beach shows just how widespread the devastation is.
Then one of the big giant yachts came and landed on my car. We had 14 feet of water down at my house.
So far, we've done over 842 rescues. And unfortunately, we've had 55 total deaths in Lee County.
Thousands pulled from their destroyed homes and taken to shelters. Hundreds of thousands still without power. For some, it may be up to a month before their lights are back on.
President Biden will visit Florida tomorrow to be briefed on recovery efforts. The president expected to meet with Governor Ron DeSantis for the first time since the governor flew migrants from Texas to Martha's Vineyard, but the White House says tomorrow is not the time to bring up that matter.
The video now infamous, marching in lockstep, making their way toward the U.S. Capitol. In their opening arguments against the leaders of the Oath Keepers, prosecutors claiming that march was an act of seditious conspiracy, part of an armed rebellion to shatter a bedrock of American democracy. Prosecutors say Stuart Rhodes, the founder of the Oath Keepers, and 4 other leaders had allegedly been planning for weeks to use force to block Congress from certifying Joe Biden as president. to keep Trump in office.
We have men already stationed outside D.C. as a nuclear option. In case they attempt to remove the president illegally, we will step in and stop it.
Authorities discovered an arsenal of firearms, including assault-style rifles, at a hotel outside of D.C. on January 6th. But defense attorneys claim the government's case is overblown and that their clients are patriots who simply were at the Capitol that day to provide security.
In California, authorities say a person of interest is in custody in connection to the kidnapping of a family of 4. The sheriff says on Monday in Merced County, a mother, father, their 8-year-old daughter, and her uncle were at a business when they were taken against their will. Police say later that day, a truck belonging to the uncle was found on fire. The person of interest is said to be in critical condition after attempting to take his own life, but still, no sign of the missing family and no known motive.
As authorities continue to search for the person they say could be a serial killer on the streets of Stockton, police announcing they found a connection to 2 more shootings to the same person or persons responsible for the string of murders, both happening in April 2021. One of the victims, a Hispanic male, died. That now brings the total to 6 men killed, 5 since this past July, and 5 of those 6 were Hispanic. Authorities say this photo from surveillance video they say was taken near 2 of the crime scenes could be of a person of interest or a witness. Paul Yaw was one of those victims, his family still in disbelief.
Horror. Nobody just wouldn't even think that would happen here.
Federal officials say their 3-month initiative to get lethal doses of fentanyl off the streets resulted in the seizure of 36 million pills. The initiative is called One Pill Can Kill, and 500,000 of them containing fentanyl were seized in New York. Now, this includes about 15,000 candy-colored fentanyl pills in Manhattan. The pills hidden inside a Lego box and had the letter M and number 30 on it to resemble 30-milligram hydrochloride pills. One person was arrested. Officials say rainbow fentanyl is the Mexican cartel's attempt to attract young buyers.
This is treacherous deception to market rainbow fentanyl like candy. This is every parent's worst nightmare, especially in the month of October as Halloween fast approaches.
Officials say a record-setting nearly 108,000 people have died from overdoses and poison in 2021 from the drugs.
Could Tom Brady and Gisele Bündchen's marriage be in trouble? The New York Post reports both have hired divorce attorneys. The couple reportedly having a fight when Brady decided to play another season with Tampa Bay instead of retiring. They've been married since 2009 and have 2 children together. Brady also has a son with ex-girlfriend Bridget Moynihan. No comment from their representatives, and ABC News has been unable to verify the Post reporting.
Welcome back. We remember Loretta Lynn tonight, who has passed away at the age of 90. The Kentucky coal miner's daughter became a country music legend for her songwriting, highlighting the struggles and joys of women's lives. Here's ABC's David Muir.
Loretta Lynn was a trailblazer.
If your eyes are on me, you're looking at country.
Singing about equality for women and the double standards.
You can't have a male friend when you're a has-been or a woman you're rated X.
In plain language.
You say you're gonna take him, oh, but I don't think you can. 'Cause you ain't woman enough to take my man.
Writing her own songs, speaking her own mind.
A liquor and love, they just don't mix, leave the bottle or me behind. And don't come home but drinking with loving on your mind.
Born in Kentucky, one of 8 children, she said she was born singing.
Me and my little first cousin sang all the time. And when we were little, Daddy would come out on the porch and tell us to shut our big mouth. People all over the holler can hear you, he'd say. And I said, Daddy, who cares? They're all our cousins.
The daughter of a coal miner.
Yeah, I'm proud to be a coal miner's daughter. I remember well the well where I drew water. The work we done was hard. At night we'd sleep 'cause we were taught.
1970 song Coal Miner's Daughter becoming the title of her book, then a movie.
Well, I was born a coal miner's daughter.
Actress Sissy Spacek playing Lynn.
Miss Sissy Spacek.
Spacek winning an Oscar and thanking Loretta Lynn.
I want to thank Loretta Lynn.
Writing more than 160 songs, more than 60 albums, winning so many Grammys. The nation's highest civilian honor, the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 2013.
I would write about my life and what was going on around me right at the time, and how I was feeling, and how some of the other girls were feeling out there. So I tried to write for us all, you know.
Tonight, Loretta Lynn, in her own words, on what led to her success.
Treat everybody like you'd like to be treated. And that way you won't have to stop and look back and say, hey, you know, the reason I'm not doing so good, I didn't do people right. And I think if you feel this way and never hurt anybody, I think you'll get along all right.
Except the memories of a coal miner's daughter.
Our thanks to David Muir. From Fresh Off the Boat, Crazy Rich Asians, Hustlers, and much more, Constance Wu is indeed making a scene. In a collection of deeply personal and moving essays, Wu takes you on her journey to stardom, from being raised by Taiwanese immigrant parents, moving to New York, and getting her big break on the first American sitcom to feature an Asian-American family in more than 20 years. Wu truly bears it all and shows her incredible strength and grace as a human being, survivor, mom, and actress. Constance, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So, of course, the book is called Making a Scene. You talk about how early on in your childhood you were told not to make a scene, that it was unladylike. At what point did you feel that you were able to break out of the constraints of that?
Well, I think it wasn't just me. I think a lot of women in America, as girls, were taught not to make scenes because it's unbecoming or at least uncool, you know? And I think I was very lucky in that at a young age, I discovered community theater, where you're literally making scenes of a play and where emotions are celebrated. And that became sort of my outlet. I didn't start applying those lessons. And developing those tools for dealing with my big emotions until my late 30s. That is sort of really when it came to be, and writing this book was a big part of that journey.
You talked about dealing with big emotions. Would you say that this was cathartic, actually putting your words to the pages?
Very much so. I surprised even myself as I was typing out these stories. I didn't realize how much I had been holding back over the years. Because I just thought, like, oh, that's my job, just to shut up and be grateful. And I am grateful, and I don't have any reason to complain. I mean, I did because I was being sexually harassed on the set of my show, but I also had such good fortune on the other hand. So it was like weighing which one do I talk about. And when I wrote about it, it made me recognize how many wounds that I had like not addressed and that I needed to open up to finally let them start healing.
And you talk about that sexual harassment that you say that you faced at the hands of one of the senior members of the production staff from Fresh Off the Boat. And you say that for years you really didn't think that you were going to ever say anything about it. This was obviously before the Me Too movement. At what point did you find your strength to say, I'm just going to bear it all?
Well, I thought I would never say anything about it because I thought I, quote unquote, took care of it. Because it only happened for the first couple of years. And then once I was no longer scared of losing my job, I actually completely stopped speaking to that producer. I did not have to take his threats and intimidation anymore. I still, to this day, have not spoken to him.
So you never confronted him either?
Never.
But he knows you're talking about him?
Oh, yeah.
And he's never,
I got the receipts.
And he's never said anything to you subsequently?
We have not spoken to each other since season 2 of the show.
You mentioned the word grateful, and you said that you are grateful. Many people, there was that backlash on social media where people felt that you were ungrateful. Tell me about the tweet that then caused the turmoil that then caused you to leave social media.
Oh, it was bad. I was like, oh my God, I'm so mad. Like, I don't blame anybody who was like, oh my gosh, because if I had seen that without context, I would have been like, this is not the Constance Wu I know. This is not
Tell for our viewers who don't know, there was a tweet about how the show was coming.
When my show was renewed, even though we expected it not to be renewed, because like the showrunner was leaving, everybody was leaving. We had the series finale written and shot. I was upset that it was renewed. And that I would have to go back to the set where I had these memories of abuse and harassment and trauma. But people didn't know that. They just thought, oh, she just had this big hit movie, Crazy Rich Asians, and now she's biting the hand that feeds her, and she's not even being grateful for that. And she's not considering the jobs of everybody else on Fresh Off the Boat, when what those critics didn't realize was that I actually kept my mouth shut for 6 years in order to preserve the reputation of the show, in order to preserve everybody else's jobs on the show at the expense of my own mental well-being. And it came out in an ungraceful way that wasn't my finest moment, but it's also a moment that was very human considering what I had to go through.
You left social media, ultimately decided to come back. Why?
What I realized was that the people that I'm trying to reach with this message about mental health, the people who are being trolled on social media, the people who need this message, they're not the ones who are necessarily buying my book. They're the people who are scrolling Twitter and feeling so isolated and alone. So how am I going to reach the people who aren't buying my book? How am I going to help? How am I going to use this experience that I had to help people say, it's okay to talk about these things, and hey, I go through it too.
What you were talking about, that isolation, and at some point it got so bad for you that you were considering jumping. And I'm wondering what kept you from jumping on that night? At your lowest moment, what kept you alive?
Well, it was definitely a very low moment. I had a DM from an Asian actress, former colleague of mine, who basically made me feel like I didn't deserve to be alive, that I was a disgrace to the Asian American community. And luckily, I had a friend come over who had access to my apartment, and she took me off of the balcony and brought me downstairs, put me in a cab, and took me to a psychiatric ER. And I was like terrified. I was like, don't let anybody know. You can't officially check me in. Because I was so embarrassed that this was happening. It was just from this place of social media and isolation that made me want to help other people going through the same thing.
I think that people will pick up this book and find themselves in some aspect here. And so we thank you so much for sharing. And to our viewers, Making a Scene by Constance Wu is now available wherever books are sold. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Before we go tonight, the image of the day. Waiters and waitresses celebrate the end of Oktoberfest, the world's largest beer festival in Munich, Germany. And now the hangovers begin. That is our show for this hour. Be sure to stay tuned to ABC News Live for more context and analysis of the day's top stories. Thanks so much for streaming with us. Up in the next hour, North Korea fires missiles at the same time Ukrainian forces advance against Putin's army. With the specter of nuclear war in the air, we're breaking down the threats. And of course, we're monitoring their recovery efforts underway in Florida after Hurricane Ian.
America's #1 news, ABC News. Most watched, most trusted, and streaming live to you anytime, anywhere, and free. This is ABC News Live, America's #1 streaming news, free to you 24/7. Watch America's #1 news whenever you want it, wherever you are, anytime. ABC News Live, streaming live and free on all platforms.
Ready for election night, I'm ready for debate night, I'm ready for it all.
This midterms is really important.
Hi, everyone.
We're going to run you ragged.
What would George do? You're working on it, George. We're going to make you proud.
With so much at stake in our world right now, we wanted to thank you for your trust and for making ABC News America's #1 news.
And thank you for making ABC News Live America's #1 streaming news.
He thought he was God.
He's now one of the most vilified men in the world. He is the everyman. Zelensky is the Tom Hanks of Ukraine.
The
fact that a little nice Jewish boy is 5'7" is showing up this KGB agent in the Kremlin.
What do you say to Americans who see Russia and you not only as a rival, but an unfriendly adversary?
Two men at war.
Which Vladimir will take over. The world is not going to be the same.
Amber Rose Isaac was the love of my life.
She went into the hospital.
And then I just see Shamani as... She was as good as dead as soon as she walked into that hospital.
Black women are 4 times more likely to die than their white counterparts with the same symptoms.
I can't let Amber be another statistic. We need to make sure that this doesn't happen to anyone else.
This fight is not over.
We're doing this together, man.
Hey there, I'm Lindsay Davis. Thanks so much for streaming with us. We're monitoring several developments here at ABC News at this hour. Australia will set aside at least 30% of its landmass to protect endangered species. Australia has lost more mammal species than any other continent and has one of the worst rates of species decline among the world's richest countries. The announced plan will deliver on the federal government's target of protecting 30% of our land and 30% of our oceans by 2030. A Michigan judge dismissed charges against 7 people in the Flint water scandal, including 2 former state health officials blamed for deaths from Legionnaire's disease. The decision does not affect former Governor Rick Snyder, whose case is being handled by a judge in a different Flint court. And after much ado, Elon Musk is finally set to purchase Twitter. The deal would move forward at a total cost of roughly $44 billion. This after Twitter filed a lawsuit against Musk in July over his effort to terminate an acquisition agreement. Twitter stock closed up today 22%. And we are following, of course, the aftermath of Hurricane Ian tonight as Southwest Florida takes the first difficult steps toward recovery. Many have now arrived at emergency shelters, their homes no longer livable. At the same time, search and rescue teams continue to scour the devastation for survivors. ABC's Victor Kendo is reporting tonight from Fort Myers.
Tonight, the growing need for basic necessities as families try to survive in Hurricane Ian's wake.
What are the biggest needs in this area right now?
Water and food. In Fort Myers, hundreds lining up at this distribution site organized by the nonprofit Global Empowerment Mission. And not far from there,
inside of this arena, it's now being used as a Red Cross shelter. They started by filling up this exterior area, and now they are at 100% capacity. Take a look over here. They're now using the arena floor. It is lined with hundreds of cots.
We met Brittany Allen with her husband and 7 children. They rode out the storm here.
What's it like now having all of your children here with you inside the shelter?
It's just a safe feeling.
It's safe here?
It's safe. It's a lot. It's a big change. But we can't be anything but grateful.
Today's search teams, including this canine, boarding a Blackhawk, headed for battered Pine Island in hard-hit Lee County. The death toll, at least 100 across Florida. Ian made landfall at 3:05 p.m. on Wednesday, and while the forecast track did shift as the Cat 4 storm closed in days earlier at 11 a.m. on Monday, the National Hurricane Center was warning of life-threatening storm surge coming to Lee County. The county didn't put that mandatory evacuation order into effect until 7 a.m. Tuesday morning, local officials defending their decisions.
This area in Fort Myers Beach is home to the largest commercial shrimping fleet in the Gulf of Mexico. In this community, they rely on these boats to make a living. But now this boatyard looks more like a scrapyard, and they're out of work.
Joanne Simmer, living on the island for decades.
For a lot of people, this was their livelihoods.
It is their livelihood. It still is. We're going to work and get them free and get them back out working.
Our thanks to Victor for that. A bombshell accusation in Georgia's pivotal Senate race. Republican Herschel Walker has called for nationwide abortions bans without exceptions. But the Daily Beast reports that he paid a former girlfriend to get an abortion. He denies that allegation. But one of his sons is now blasting his father's campaign. ABC's Rachel Scott has the details.
The race that could decide control of the Senate now upended by the report Georgia's Republican Senate candidate Herschel Walker paid for an ex-girlfriend to have an abortion. Walker calls it a flat-out lie. Today, he was ducking reporters at a prayer breakfast in Atlanta.
It's clear Herschel Walker's campaign is trying to keep us at a distance. We tried to attend the luncheon that he is attending today. Well, his campaign kicked us off the property and moved us all the way across the street. We don't know if we're going to get any closer.
We didn't. Walker slipped out. It comes less than 24 hours after the story broke. An anonymous woman claiming to the Daily Beast that when she became pregnant in 2009, Walker urged her to have an abortion. She showed the reporter a $575 bill from the abortion clinic and a $700 check she says was from Walker. There's also this, a get well soon card she says he gave her. ABC News has not independently confirmed the report, but Walker says it never happened.
I never asked anyone to get an abortion. I never paid for an abortion, and it's a lie.
And when asked about that $700 check,
well, I send money to a lot of people, and that's what's so funny. I give money to people all the time because I'm always helping people because I believe in being generous.
Walker opposes abortion rights in all cases, no exceptions.
I'm for life. In the Ten Commandments, does it not say, thou shalt not kill? That is one of the 10 commandments that you should live by, that we should go by, thou shalt not kill.
Today, his own son, Christian Walker, calling him out as a hypocrite.
Family values, people. He has 4 kids, 4 different women, wasn't in the house raising one of them. He was out having sex with other women. Do you care about family values?
Christian Walker, a conservative influencer with a large presence on social media, says every member of Walker's family had begged him not to run in the first place.
Don't lie about your life. You don't get to pretend you're some moral family guy. You don't get to pretend all these things. Do not lie.
Some damning words from his own son there, thanks to Rachel Scott. Authorities tonight are linking a 6th possible murder to a serial killer in California. They say the victim was shot and killed in Oakland in April of last year. Investigators also believe the suspect shot and wounded a woman around that same time. The most recent shooting took place just last week. Here's ABC's Mola Lange.
Tonight, authorities in Stockton, California releasing this new video of a person of interest in connection with a string of serial killings.
We do have ballistic evidence that are linking our cases.
Overnight, 2 new cases linked by detectives, one of them in Oakland. At least 7 people have been shot, 6 killed since April of 2021. 5 of the 7 were Hispanic men between 21 and 54 years old. 4 were gunned down near each other in Stockton on different nights. The only person to survive was a 46-year-old woman. Paul Yaw was one of the victims. The father of 2 was shot and killed in July.
We were shocked to hear that these murders were connected because we just thought it was a random killing.
Well, Stockton police here say that their person of interest is seen in surveillance video at more than one of these crime scenes. No motive has yet been determined, but a $115,000 reward is being offered up for information leading to an arrest, Lindsay.
Mola, thank you. Overseas now, and President Biden spoke today with the Japanese Prime Minister after yet another provocation by North Korea. Kim Jong-un's latest ballistic missile test crashed into the ocean, but not before passing over Japan. Here's ABC's Chief Global Affairs correspondent, Martha Raddatz.
Tonight, Japanese citizens still shaken after air raid sirens wailed as a North Korean ballistic missile roared directly over northern Japan before crashing into the sea. And this was the longest distance a North Korean missile like this one has ever traveled, more than 2,800 miles.
But we're pointed in a southerly direction. It could hit U.S. bases on Guam.
The condemnation from Japan, South Korea, and the U.S. was swift. South Korea and the U.S. sending a phalanx of fighter jets on a joint bombing drill on an uninhabited island off the coast of the Korean peninsula.
Martha Raddatz joins us now from Washington. And Martha, there are also concerns tonight that a North Korea nuclear test might be imminent.
Exactly, Lindsay. The Pentagon is concerned that there will be a nuclear test in the coming weeks. They have seen indications of that. North Korea hasn't done that in 5 years, so that would be a major escalation. Lindsay?
Yeah, it certainly would be. Martha Raddatz, our thanks to you. And now to the war in Ukraine, where Ukrainian troops are quickly advancing in the south and ramping up the pressure in the northeast as well. Meanwhile, on the political front, Ukraine's President Vladimir Zelensky today signed a decree vowing to never negotiate with Vladimir Putin. ABC's chief foreign correspondent Ian Pannell reports once again tonight from eastern Ukraine.
Tonight, more stunning breakthroughs on the battlefield by Ukrainian forces. Slava Ukraini! Soldiers in newly liberated towns in southern Ukraine celebrating by tearing down Russian flags, using them to wipe their feet. Russian military bloggers embedded with Kremlin troops reporting the collapse of an entire section of the front line northeast of Kherson. Ukraine's army advancing nearly 20 miles in 2 days. The Russians forced to retreat to avoid encirclement. It's a setback so serious it may endanger Russia's ability to hold the regional capital Kherson, annexed by Putin just days ago. Also today, in the northeast, Ukraine reportedly closing in on more critical towns after their dramatic success here in the Donbass just days ago.
This is one of the main roads that leads into the Donbass. It's only recently liberated by the Ukrainians. You can see some of the damage on here, some of the signs of the battles that were fought to take this territory.
In a phone call to Ukraine's President Zelensky today, President Biden renewing his promise to defend Ukraine for as long as it takes, pledging another $625 million in weaponry, including 4 more HIMARS rocket systems that have proven so crucial to Ukraine's success on the battlefield. Zelensky today also signing a decree to never negotiate with President Putin.
Our thanks to Ian. And with every Ukrainian victory, Putin is further backed into a corner, fueling fears that he may turn to some type of nuclear strike. For more on this potential escalation, let's bring in ABC News contributor and retired Colonel Steve Gagner. Steve, always good to have you on the show. Tell us why some are calling this the most dangerous moment since the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Yeah, Lindsay, because Mr. Putin is losing, and he's losing badly, and he really has no options that can get him out of the mess that he's put himself in. You know, all through these months as the war's been going on, there's always been a hope that there would be some sort of a diplomatic off-ramp. No more. Putin has essentially shut the door on any kind of a diplomatic resolution. And then again today we saw President Zelensky saying he would not negotiate with Putin. Didn't say he wouldn't negotiate with Russia, but not with Putin. So with his military losing badly on the battlefield, Mr. Putin is personally running out of options and is in danger of losing control of his regime.
And as you just mentioned, of course, Zelensky did sign that decree today vowing never to negotiate with Putin. As Ukraine takes back territory in the east and the south, there is a known Russian strategy, escalate to de-escalate. But is there an option for Putin to de-escalate or back down at all at this point?
I can't see it. You know, this idea of escalating and de-escalating, basically you take a very bad situation where you don't have any negotiating room and you create a crisis. And so this is why people are talking about the potential for the use of nuclear weapons. As his conventional military continues to lose on the battlefield, he continues to lose the territory that he had taken before. He may resort to nuclear weapons with the idea of shocking the world to the point where everybody jumps in and says we need to, you know, break it up. It's the referee jumping in the middle. Maybe it'll involve countries that have sat on the sidelines up until now, such as India and China. But you can just imagine that if we see nuclear bombs, mushroom clouds over some part of Ukraine or the Black Sea, that the world is going to get very interested very quickly and try to defuse the situation. So this may be Putin's out.
U.S. officials say that our nuclear posture has not changed. That typically means deterrence. But what happens if in the U.S., if Putin does deploy a nuclear weapon in Ukraine? Is there any response from the U.S. that would make a statement but not create a nuclear war?
Yeah, obviously what would happen is the U.S. nuclear forces would go on high alert, and they would show that to the world that they were on high alert. So there'd be the bombers, it would be the SSBNs, the boomers, what they call boomers, undersea submarines that have intercontinental ballistic missiles, and you would have various capabilities in the air, B-2 bombers who would be on alert, B-52s. But these would be things just to show, don't come here. Lindsay, there's been a lot of discussion here in the past couple of days about what is a tactical nuclear weapon and what's a strategic nuclear weapon. So nobody's thinking that what Putin's going to do is take a multi-megaton massive bomb that would, you know, incinerate a major city and detonate that. In the Ukraine, they're talking about smaller yield, and in nuclear weapons, small is never really small, but somewhere between maybe 50 and 10 kilotons. If you looked at Hiroshima, that was about 15 kilotons. So this would be, at least what people are surmising, it'd be some sort of a demonstration in an open area over the Black Sea to say, I'm serious, I'm crossing that threshold that hasn't been crossed since 1945 because I'm serious and I'm losing.
And switching gears now, we've also been reporting on the latest ballistic missile test by North Korea, the first to pass over Japan since 2017. The U.S. and South Korea have already responded with a military exercise of their own. You know, I heard you say earlier, Steve, that this is a matter of Kim Jong-un trying to get attention. Is there any more to it than that?
Well, interestingly enough, he's overflown the last 3 flights of overflying Japan. He has increased the range of each of those missiles by about 1,000 kilometers. So these are demonstrating that he's getting longer range out of this particular missile, the Hwasong-12. But we still don't know if that missile has a nuclear warhead that can survive the heat of reentry and do so accurately. So he's shown us that he has the missiles. He showed us he's had the range, but we still don't know if it's a true nuclear threat. But we also know that they've been preparing for weeks now to conduct another underground nuclear test. So the last time we saw one of these ballistic missiles years ago, 5 years ago, we had another underground nuclear test. So he's preparing, I think, a nuclear test right as the time as Xi Jinping and the Chinese Party Congress is adjourning. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out, but hard to tell what he wants to do other than to get attention and to show that he does have these capabilities.
All right, Steve Ganyard, always appreciate your insight and time. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Lindsay.
And still to come, the deadly prison riot and the concerns in one nation that the prisons there are just too full. And another instance of hidden figures. Do you know who the first paramedics were? This is ABC News Live.
The crush of families here in Poland.
At refugee centers
in Putin's Russia.
On the ground in Ukraine.
Close to the front line.
Here at the White House.
Destructive Cat 4 storm.
Here along I-5.
Boston is in the bullseye.
Let's go. We made it.
ABC News Live, America's #1 streaming news. Anytime, anywhere. Streaming 24/7, straight to you for free.
Thank you for making ABC News Live America's #1 streaming news.
Bring them on. If only there was a place in the morning to start my day. With a smile, somewhere to help me get in the know. A place that's spectacular as well. Me.
I think we might know a place, right, guys?
Bring your friends. Oh, wait, there is.
Good morning, America.
GMA, 7A, every day. Boom. Boom. Boom.
Good morning, Michael.
Good morning, Robin. Good morning, America. How are you?
Boom. Now that's how you start your day, people.
All right, here we go. You ready? Let's do it.
Yes, it's the show America wants and America needs right now.
This is What Would You Do? Let's go. How are you? Yes.
So what will you be watching Saturdays on ABC News Live?
What would you do?
Hey, I guess I just found out.
The What Would You Do Marathon, 12 to 6 Eastern, every Saturday on ABC News Live.
My favorite show.
As of today, in a big way, we have inaugurated abcnews.com.
A lot has changed in our world since Peter made that announcement. But what hasn't changed is the commitment to groundbreaking reporting and innovation at abcnews.com. And here's to everything ahead.
This is ABC News Live Prime.
Thanks so much for streaming with us.
Live reporting, breaking news, exclusives, award-winning, powerful, eye-opening. ABC News Live Prime with Lindsay Davis. Streaming weeknights.
Welcome back. We're tracking several headlines around the world. At least 15 prisoners were killed at a prison in Ecuador, and another 21 were injured in the latest incident of deadly jail violence in the Andean country. This incident is just the latest in a rash of prison deaths. Last year, 316 prisoners died during riots in various prisons across Ecuador. The country's prisons are said to be more than 11% beyond maximum capacity, according to official figures. Indonesia's Soccer Federation has banned 2 officials for life over a weekend stadium riot that killed at least 125 people. In one of the world's worst stadium disasters, spectators were crushed as they tried to flee the overpacked stadium. Hundreds of residents held a mass prayer service in memory of those lost. Orthodox Jews perform rituals to cleanse themselves from sin ahead of Yom Kippur, or Day of Atonement, which begins tonight. In Jerusalem's ultra-Orthodox neighborhood, people took part in a custom called kapara, which They wave a live chicken over their head. The act is thought to purge the believer of their sins by symbolically passing them on to the animal. There was a time when ambulances were called to emergencies and the medics who showed up had no significant training in how to treat victims. The men who ushered in the change have been nearly erased from history. In American Sirens, the incredible story of the black men who became America's first paramedics, author Kevin Hazard, a former paramedic himself, takes a look at the making of the first paramedic unit in the U.S. He joins us now to talk more about it. Kevin, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So I want to talk about what it was like before those black paramedics started serving Pittsburgh Hill District, a predominantly black neighborhood. You write, Pittsburgh's police ambulances, clunky old trucks known colloquially as Black Betties, carried little more than a stretcher. Cops didn't stabilize or even treat patients, just rushed them to the nearest hospital. If someone was seriously hurt or ill, what type of care could they expect from those medics?
Speed. That was really about it. They really didn't have any equipment. They had very little training. If you're talking about the police ambulance service, I mean, these are guys who are toward the end of their career and who probably had less training than a lifeguard at your local pool. And that's if you were in the city. If you worked in the lived in the outskirts of town, who would show up would be two undertakers and a hearse.
Tell us about why, when the Freedom House Ambulance Service started in 1967, why they decided to choose the first class of paramedics to be all black men.
Well, there were two things happening at once. One was a recognition that guys in hearses and cops in paddy wagons weren't the right people to be transporting patients. So that was one. And so somebody had to develop this doctor, an Austrian anesthesiologist named Peter Saffer, on his own draws up the world's first paramedic curriculum. Problem is he doesn't have any people to carry out this mission that he has. Well, across town, there's a group called Freedom House Enterprises. And Freedom House was created because urban renewal had taken this neighborhood in Pittsburgh called the Hill District and literally scraped it down to the dirt. And what was left of that area turned to despair. So Freedom House Enterprises was an organization that was developed to bring job opportunities to the local black population.
And you write a $35,000 truck and all this equipment, the training, that smug attitude, and you're not panicking. It's one thing to go to school and learn CPR, to trot out mannequins and sit through lectures, but it's something else entirely to actually do it, to be faced with a person whose life you either will or won't save. Talk to us about the mental toll that these paramedics had to face being the first to do this, and what their success rate was like.
Nobody had heard of a paramedic. A paramedic technically did not exist. And yet it was this leap of faith on their part that this idea, that this need for saving lives outside the hospital was going to work. And that was going to be the way that they would make their mark in the world. Within a year, maybe 2 years, a huge study is done to determine just how successful has this program been. And so they compare Freedom House paramedics treating critical patients with the volunteer fire department treating critical patients or the police department treating critical patients. What they found was that with the volunteer firefighters, 80% of the time, they delivered the wrong care. With the police department, 60% of the time, they delivered the wrong care. And with Freedom House, 78% of the time, they delivered the right care. I mean, these guys, right from the get-go, were doing exactly what was needed to be done to save lives. The problem was they were doing it in an era where the city really did not accept them. I mean, on numerous occasions, they would show up to a scene and a patient would refuse to let them lay hands on her because she was white and they were black.
Do you think this is a case of another Hidden Figures, the idea that this story was untold for so long? I'm curious also if you even learned about this when you went through your own paramedic training.
It is exactly like that case. I spent 10 years as a paramedic. Nobody had ever uttered the words Freedom House in my presence. If you go to EMT school today, you will have to learn about the Napoleonic Wars because Napoleon was the first one to use triage and a transport to get soldiers off the battlefield. So you learn about that. But you won't learn that in 1967, 24 young men from the Hill District in the city of Pittsburgh went through an incredibly arduous training program that would stand up next to anything that's done today and quite literally invented paramedics. EMS was something that had a profound effect on my life. It has a profound effect on millions of lives all over the world every day. And yet nobody knows that it started with these guys right here.
Well, Kevin, we thank you for bringing the story to us and to our viewers. You can purchase American Sirens, the incredible story of the black men who became America's first paramedics, wherever books are sold. It is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and early detection can, of course, save lives. And helping with that effort, we're talking about vans now that are able to give people easy access to mammograms, including to so many women of color who have trouble often getting the proper screening. ABC News' Amy Robach has more.
It's a mammogram on wheels. Mount Sinai Mammovan, bringing life-saving technology across the 5 boroughs of New York City. The goal, to reach as many women as possible and catch breast cancer early.
We need people not to be afraid of breast cancer. We need people not to be afraid of mammograms.
The backbone of this Mammovan, program manager Jean Stenard.
Jean runs this van. She's the glue that holds us all together.
She's very courteous, very generous, and she always puts this program and the people in the program before herself.
For Jean, it's personal. Her mother, Helen, died of breast cancer in the 90s, and she has made it her mission to help others.
In 2022, we're going to do almost 2,000 mammograms. We're going to find many cancers. We're going to really help people and save lives.
This is a topic that's near and dear to her heart, and she has worked tirelessly. She is the heart and soul.
I know she spends many more hours than she's expected to, and that's always kind of been her nature.
She really cares about the cause and about breast cancer awareness.
Jean training volunteers like Irene Perlman, who joined the Mammovan to honor her late sister, Phyllis.
Irene is very warm, very kind, very caring.
She reached out and she said, I would really love to help get more women screened.
Marking the 30 years since her sister's passing from breast cancer.
To bring this service to women who need it in her sister's memory, it's wonderful.
It's so important to her.
It's honestly a beautiful thing for Aunt Phyllis, and I'm sure she's literally looking down, just smiling and just saying like, wow, what a beautiful sister I have.
What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Both Jean and Irene honoring their loved ones daily by helping to save lives.
We love you so much, Honey Jean, and we're so proud of you.
It is more than deserved. Good job, my friend.
Enjoy the moment, Jean. So well deserved.
Irene is, such an advocate for getting screened.
Thank you for being the best mom and the best leader.
For doing something that is going to be greatly beneficial to a lot of women out there in the community.
Hopefully so many people will listen to Irene's advice there, and our thanks to Amy Robach for that. Still to come, a 4-year-old gets an amazing birthday surprise. How one of his heroes went the extra mile to throw a party he will never forget.
After an extraordinary news-making year, and now with the historic midterms inching closer, thank you for making ABC's This Week America's #1 news and politics show on Sunday mornings.
Ready for election night, I'm ready for debate night, I'm ready for it all.
This midterms is really important. Hi, everyone.
We're going to run you ragged.
What would George do? You're working on it, George. We're going to make you proud.
This is ABC News Live Prime.
Thanks so much for streaming with us.
Live reporting, breaking news, exclusives, award-winning, powerful, eye-opening. ABC News Live Prime with Lindsay Davis, streaming weeknights.
Ready for a little GMA-ish promo? Okay, here we go. GMA 7A every day with Robin, George, and Michael. That's how you start the day. Boom!
America's #1 news, ABC News. Most watched, most trusted, and streaming live to you anytime, anywhere, and free. This is ABC News Live, America's #1 streaming news, free to you 24/7. Watch America's #1 news whenever you want it, wherever you are, anytime. ABC News Live, streaming live and free on all platforms.
All rise. The American League has a new home run king. New York Yankee slugger Aaron Aaron Judge swatting his 62nd home run of the season right in the left field bleachers during the first inning of tonight's game against the Texas Rangers. Judge breaks a record held by Yankees legend Roger Maris for more than 60 years. He did it in the second to last game of the season as the Yankees now prepare for their playoff run. One UPS driver is taking special deliveries to a whole new level, giving a 4-year-old boy a birthday that he will not soon forget. Reporter Brianna Borghi at our partner station WCVB has a story in tonight's Local Lowdown.
He counts UPS trucks, and he just loves them.
Kyle Scothorn is obsessed with UPS trucks. Just look at the pajama set he wears every day. He even had a UPS-themed birthday party and really wanted a special guest there.
Actually went outside to try and chase you down as you were delivering to our neighbor, and he wanted to invite you to his party.
I missed him. I felt so bad I wasn't able to make his party.
UPS driver Nick Monaco made it up to him, surprising the 4-year-old with this sweet note, along with a toy truck and official hat for his birthday, even inviting Kyle and his mom Caitlin to the Kingston UPS facility.
Oh, nice. You got some muscles, kid.
Kyle left the toy truck behind for the real thing.
Come on in. Use the handrail. Come on up.
And after his VIP truck tour, it was time to watch the fleet roll out. It's clear Nick is making more than just deliveries. He's making birthday wishes come true.
What do you say again?
Thank you.
Very sweet. And that is our show for tonight. Be sure to stay tuned to ABC News Live for more context and analysis of the day's top stories. I'm Lindsay Davis. Thanks so much for streaming with us. Have a great night.
America's #1 news.